And we are live. Well, hello everybody. This is another Calico community meeting. This is the last meeting of, not the last meeting, but last meeting for 2025. We'll see you in the next year. So we do have a couple of things going on, but I just want to start with all the changes that we have done in 2025 because there's been a lot of stuff that we have gone through, and some of them are actually catchy, but you might not know it, you might not have seen it. So we're gonna go over it, and we do have a lot of engineers here who can say why they're these features are working or not working. So we'll see. Um,
Surely they're
with
all working, Rizzo.
we'll see, we'll see. All right. Um, so with that, let me get my document on, and I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully it's the Google document. All right.
Looks good.
So, all right. I wanted to switch things up with starting with VPP, given that Nathan have been always here, but seems like he missed this one. So I'm just gonna go to Calico and come back to Nathan again. So we had a bunch of bug releases. So these are bug fixes that we do after a release. Usually there might be some sort of problem or some sort of things that we haven't seen in our test cases, in our release pipelines and those sort of things. So we usually issue a patch release. On top of that, we do have cadence for patch releases. So there are two ways that we release patches or release fixes. One is something's gone wrong and we need to fix it right now. Or the other one is there are a bunch of issues, we're working on it. These are not priority problems. So we will fix it later on these release cadences. With that being said, we had around 19 bug fixes in 2025. So these are releases. So each one of these has a lot of other things that we are gonna get into it. But just so you know, our engineers have been working on releases, and these are also releases. Now, we also had four major releases. These are when you see Calico version goes up: 328, 329, 330, and 331 are some of the major releases that we have done. And in terms of what have happened, by the way, I'm not talking about the versioning sort of cadence because I've seen a bunch of engineers laughing. But anyway, so these are sort of oh, these are huge releases that I have to talk about. So that being said, this year was about observability. We open sourced our flow logs. We created something called Calico Whisker. It's a UI that allows you to interact with your flow logs, see what's going on. There's a lot of video about it in our YouTube channel. I'll add links to the description of this um, recording. But I'm going to talk about flow logs a bit and then go to Casey and ask him about some of the stuff that he might want to highlight about Goldmain, which is the flow log piece, and Calico Whisker, which is the UI piece. So the way it works is when you install Calico 330 or 331, basically Felix, the brain of Calico, checks all the networking communication that happens, sends it to a piece called Goldmain. Goldmain stores it in memory, and if somebody asks it, Goldman uses gRPC. So if somebody asks it, it will send it to that client. We have written something called Calico Whisker. It's a gRPC based UI. You can also write your own piece of code if you like. There is actually a YouTube recording of me talking about it, and there are like codes in my GitHub channel. With that being said, we're going to go to Casey and ask about, is there anything that he wants to highlight about Calico Whisker?
Put me on the spot. Yeah, I mean it's I think already proven to be a really useful tool for me personally and a bunch of other users that I've spoken to. Um, I think the thing that I'd highlight with this is that it's not as part of this we also released the ability to stage network policies, and we've been improving the workflows around being able to stage policies, see how those um, policies might impact your cluster if they were enforced. And then Whisker allows you to visualize that. And Olex is here on the call. I know he's working on uh, improvements to that experience as well to allow you to filter on specific staged policies. Um, but that's a workflow that I know I've spoken, especially at KubeCon, I was speaking to folks and they hadn't quite registered that that's possible now. Um, so good to call that out. It's pretty cool.
I think you foreshadowed, but yeah, we'll get to that later. But yeah, stage network policies also. Now, uh, that is sort of like observability that right now we're offering with Calico Open Source. It is free. You can also connect it to Calico Cloud, free tier. That is also free. You don't have to pay for anything. You don't even need a credit card. It's good to have one, but you don't need to insert it anywhere. It just, you connect your cluster to Calico Cloud, everything for free. And even if you don't like it, you can uninstall with one command. So it might be two commands. Last time I tried, it was one command and it works perfectly. So data plane. Another sort of thing that we do is data plane. Now, there is a difference between Calico and other CNIs that you see. For instance, like Cilium, which is they sort of maintain one data plane. And a data plane is the technology that allows you to have networking in your environment. So we have a pluggable data plane architecture, which means our engineers have to work on different technologies in order to allow you to have networking in your cluster. You could choose IP tables, NF tables, I believe we also have IPVS, we have HNS for Windows, we have eBPF for Linux. And as soon as Microsoft releases eBPF for Windows as something that is signed that can be installed, hopefully we can get some of the engineers to work on that too. I think it's going to be Pedro. He's good with Windows. But anyway, that was an internal joke. We'll get to that later. But so in terms of data planes, this year we GA'd NF tables. And NF tables is something that you will see a bit more in the Linux kernels everywhere because most distros are moving away from IP tables to NF tables. Basically, it allows you to have the stability of IP tables with the better performance. Some of the stuff that was highlighted in KubeCon was around services. So creating services in IP tables, if you do it on a scale, is going to be a pain. It's because the way IP tables does programming, it just goes like one in a chain, two in a chain, three in a chain. It's not a lookup. Now, NF tables does it differently. It does lookups instead of like going through a list of all the rules that you have. It goes and does a hash lookup or a map lookup. With that being said, we also have an engineer who has done the NF table works, and his name is Casey. So if I'm going to talk about eBPF a bit, and we'll ask Casey about NF tables. That being said, I also see Mazdak here, so maybe we could ask him about eBPF later. But if you're okay with it, just put the thumbs up. I'll give you the mic. You could talk about some of the stuff that I clue you in about. Anyway, so eBPF. One of the things that we have done for eBPF was we made it easier to install eBPF. Um, I think it's been like 5, 6 years that we have an eBPF data point. It's so old, I basically cannot remember when we added it. It can go to school or something right now. But anyway, so eBPF, what we have done here is now you don't need to if you have worked with Calico eBPF, you had to create a config map, add some IP addresses to point it to the Kubernetes API server. Now, why would you do that? It's because our eBPF implementation is a replacement of kubeproxy. And when you remove kubeproxy, well, things cannot talk to inside the Kubernetes cluster. And one of the things that most programs use is a service called Kubernetes. It's a default service. It's in all Kubernetes clusters. I hope so. And that is the part the kubeproxy programs and allows you to talk to the API server. So if you don't have kubeproxy, you cannot talk to the API server. You create a config map, it allows you to talk to, and we made that automatically. So right now, all you need to do in the operator, you add eBPF data plane, and there are two other configurations, all documented in our documentation, docs.tigera.io. Check it out. You add those two, and everything happens automatically. With that being said, I want to go back to Casey for a couple of things around NF tables. Casey,
Yeah. What do you want to know?
so there was a PR about. So right now we do have NF tables, and it works. I've tried it, and it's pretty neat. Now, my question is around one of the PRs that you created. It's about flow tables.
Mm-hmm. Thought you might be
Um,
asking about this.
so, is there any sort of thing that you want to mention? Or I don't want to ask about ETAs. Those are like arbitrary, like throwing out a date or something. But I just want to ask, like, why flow tables? Like, why not something else? Why not adding, uh, for instance, eBPF program in there? Because IP tables can do that, right? With IP tables, you can invoke an eBPF program, like something like that. Why flow
Yeah,
tables?
you can do that with IP tables, and I think support for that is limited in NF tables at the moment. So there's some places we've looked where we haven't been able to do that call out yet, but flow tables should get pretty similar performance in a lot of cases, and it's part of the native NF tables API, so um, it's quite a bit simpler. And yeah, I mean, I've got that PR open, which is a prototype, and I've been meaning to get back to productizing. That'll be a goal of mine for 2026. But it does allow us to bypass large parts of the networking stack for established connections. So especially for longer lived connections, you should see pretty substantial performance improvements.
All right, good to know. Now, with that being said, um, so I talked about eBPF, Mazdak. I didn't forget. I'm going to come back to you. A little bit of QoS. So I'm going to talk about QoS, then go to Pedro. I see Pedro too. But yeah, uh, hopefully you guys have studied. So this is gonna like reflect on your end of the year quota things. But anyway, so we also added QoS capability. Now you might say, well, QoS was always available. I do have like a plugin, the CNI QoS plugin. I can add it, have QoS, like big whoop. Now, the thing that we added is you actually don't need that plugin. It's integrated into Calico, and we do it a little bit differently. Again, QoS, these sort of things are all marks and bits in the IP header. Sort of rate limiting happens with IP tables. Everything, yeah, true, true, true. But there are bits and pieces that we have, which gives you a better sort of like unified experience. With that being said, you don't have to go like SSH into all your nodes, add the plugin in the CNI config file. It's conflist something zero, whatever. And or you don't have to go change all your Terraform infrastructure creation to add CNI plugin. And you don't have to add the QoS plugin. With that being said, in terms of QoS, right now we have burst limit, burst rate limit and peak rate. Everything that I talked about, there is a video about it in our YouTube channel. Again, I will add it to the description. But we're gonna come back to these two engineers that we have, Pedro and Mazdak, because Pedro did the QoS part, Mazdak did the DSCP marking part, and ask him a little bit about like what's going on, because I don't know what QoS is, so we're gonna ask them. Now, in terms of eBPF, Mazdak, I think there was a change that allows people to automatically have the eBPF configuration there. Lucas did it. So from what I understood is there are two parts to it. First, Tigera operator creates some eBPF connections to the data store. Is that correct? To the Kubernetes API server instead of generating the config map.
Reza, yeah, I know about BPF, but not this part. Like, yeah,
Oh,
Lucas and sure Laurent must work on it. I think Eric might know about this. I think he was part of, he reviewed the design. If not, I think Casey might.
Wait, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. What did I do?
you're not paying attention? All right.
I might be able
Some
to
did.
talk a little bit about this as well. Yeah.
All right. First of all, I'm deducting 2 points from Eric for not paying attention. So from so Pedro, do you know about like the BPF connection programs there?
Yeah, I might be off base here, but from talking to Lucas, I think usually we need a proxy for bootstrapping, uh, talking to like being able to reach the API server when it uses a DNS name instead of the plain IP address, and uh, so we added a new configuration to the operator that Eric might be familiar with to add this address, which uh, um, removes the need to have the proxy present when bootstrapping. So we can start up a cluster without having boot proxy in at all.
Yeah.
From what I understood, when you enable the operator configurations, it adds a couple of eBPF programs into your nodes, and those do the whole config map. There was a config map allowing Felix to directly talk to the Kubernetes API server. So instead of having that file now, everything happens automatically, and we create those EPF programs. Then that. Sorry, Eric. Go ahead.
No. Yeah, something like that. I'm not quite sure on the details, but yeah, when it's not necessary to create that config map anymore, you can set it and it will if it can, it will come up with the address, and I think it gets passed a node or something, and I think there's an init container involved that sets some stuff up, but all that's under the covers for the user. And yeah, and if it can do that, then it will also, and it can modify kube proxy. It will do that and get it to turn off.
All right. Sweet. Now, going back to Pedro about QoS. So, from what I understood in like these year changes, we have burst, peak, and rate limit. Is there anything else that we are adding?
No, hang on. This is first. Let me start off that QoS
Go
is a
ahead.
bit of an overloaded term. I've seen it mean at least two things. So one of those is what we call QoS controls, which is basically limiting resources so that we don't have like one, they call it noisy neighbor hogging all resources, and the quality of the service for the others goes down. And the other one is what's called DSCP marking in here, which is basically having different classes of traffic, and these markings specify what class they are, and they go to different queues, have higher priorities, lower priorities, etc. So I was just gonna say, like, the QoS controls, which is like limiting resources. Uh, we we had before with the CNI bandwidth plugin, we had only bandwidth limits, and with Calico now we also have bandwidth limits, but we can also limit the packet rate independent of the bandwidth used. This is good for avoiding or preventing flooding of small packets like ICMP flooding and stuff. And also we have limiting of the number of connections that a pod can have established, either ingress or egress. So these are the three controls that we added. One thing that I wanted to mention is if you're already using the bandwidth plugin with the bandwidth plugin annotations and you upgrade to Calico 330, we're gonna support that. So it's gonna be seamless. Calico will take over, but it'll use the configuration that's already existing, so you won't see an issue there.
Oh, so it automatically migrates my old stuff to Calico.
Yes and no. I'm gonna say, like, we have a new Calico annotations, but we also honor the
I
bandwidth plugin
see.
annotation. So it won't migrate, but it won't disrupt.
Got it.
It will
Got it.
just work. So
Got it. It just works.
yeah, but
Oh,
it
that's
won't edit your pods to migrate the annotations.
fun fact. Like during KubeCon, I was talking to a lot of people who were using Calico Open Source, and they all said it just works. You guys maybe should break it so we come and pay you. No, I know. I'm just saying we got a lot of engineers. I guess you guys know how to break it too, so break it at some point. Anyway, so in terms of QoS, I saw a PR from Nasdaq, and he was talking about policy QoS. I think it was creating policies in order to apply QoS. We talked about it in like the last community meeting, but you were not here. Would you mind like sharing a couple of things? By the way, this is not released yet. It's gonna be released later, but yeah, I would like to know about it. Like, how does it work?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So yeah, as Pedro said, we have like different tools in QoS, like rate limiting, marking, and all of them are like configured based on annotation. So basically, we have a QoS control, like which are annotation based configuration. But then that means like you have limited option to specify what you need. Like in this case, all traffic coming and leaving a pod will be affected by this configuration. But let's say, like, I mean, you want to add very more detailed policy. For example, you want to set like DSCP mark toward a specific IP address subnet, a specific like port number, like destination port. These things you cannot do with just base. It's possible to do it with like annotation, but it's going to be very bad regarding like user experience. So that's the reason we are moving, like, I mean, we are planning to introduce a new resource, a new CRD, like called QS policy, to allow user to like include, like use that to express more granular, like, I mean, policy for this sort of like things, like for marking and also ideally for rate limiting traffic.
Oh, sweet. Maybe I could get you to one of the SIG communities and we start a new resource called QS, if there is not
Apparently,
one.
apparently there is a discussion around that. Like there is a discussion around like in the SIG network policy API, there is a discussion to like to start and introducing a standard like QS policy resource.
Okay, I'll see what I can do.
It would certainly be nice to move on from annotations to a proper resource.
Mm.
All right. So with that, Calico Ingress Gateway. So we bundled Envoy into Calico. So if you don't know, there is this thing called Ingress controllers. We used to like deploy them. It would allow external stuff to talk to internal stuff. For instance, you had a load balancer, you would create an ingress controller. Your ingress controller would understand layer 7, which means like you could add a host name in there, add some certificate in there, and like serve your whatever web, HTTP, whatever you have. Actually, not whatever you have. Some of the things that you couldn't do was, for instance, gRPC was not supported with Ingress controller. You might argue, well, I had Ingress controller X, and that would allow me to create gRPC channels for Ingress. And that is why the community started shifting to Gateway API. A lot of things that you were using was vendor specific. Everybody had their own implementation, their own annotations, sort of like difficult to manage those. So there is something called Gateway API. And Gateway API is it's an umbrella term for all these things that we used to enjoy in Ingress in one standard umbrella under. And Calico Ingress actually implements the Gateway API standard. It uses Envoy. There's like a lot of YouTube videos around it that we created. Again, in our YouTube channel, we have docs about it. Basically, you create a Gateway API, a gateway, add some sort of address to it, and usher all the traffic to wherever you want. It supports most of the things. I would say last time that I saw the conformance test, it was all the things. So there are different things the Gateway API offers. There is a core support. We clear that. There is some extended support. Those extended supports, we offer some of them. Again, everything that Envoy clears, we should also clear because we basically bundle Envoy. If something is not there, please create a GitHub ticket. One of these brilliant gentlemen would go and fix it for you. That being said, network policy and security are bread and butter. So stage network policies, as Casey mentioned, it's a unique resource for Calico. If you're using Calico, and if you're not using Calico, go ahead, install it and use Calico. But if you have Calico on, stage network policy allows you to create a policy that observes what happens to a traffic. And it sort of tells you, if you create this policy, these are the traffic that it would sort of select or modify or whatever. But the great thing is it doesn't enforce anything. It just shows you, here are the packets that I would either permit or deny. Now, that being said, you can create stage network policy in a namespace or in as a global. You can also create stage Kubernetes network policy. So basically, you can see what is going on with your network policies before they hit production. There's a bunch of videos around it. Our YouTube channel. Just subscribe to our YouTube channel. You will learn about all of these things that I'm talking about. So we also did a bit of tweaking around host endpoints. Michael, one of our engineers, who's also in this Zoom chat, did a little bit of tweaking to those, but we're going to queue him in for IPAM load balancers. So in terms of host endpoints, automatic host endpoints now allows you to write interface patterns. These are like regex sort of patterns that allows you to go like, oh, I don't want all the interfaces. I want like these interfaces. So if you didn't know, back in a day when you didn't have 331, I want to say, when you created an automatic host endpoint, it would select all the host endpoints that you have in your cluster. Now, why would you create host endpoints? If you don't know, Kubernetes network policies only apply to namespaced stuff. And if you want to, for instance, apply something to your network card, you need something like Calico and host endpoint, which allows you to create a policy and attach it to that interface. Whew. Now, that being said, we're going to go to IPAM load balancers. I also see Lucas is here. We're going to cue him in about he's going to be under spotlight for the eBPF changes that he have done, but that's another story for later. So, Michael, I believe you added some support around load balancers. So right now, if I create a service load balancer, it will automatically get an IP address, right?
Yes, you just have to set up IP pools specifically for load balancers. And if you don't do anything else and you create a load balancer service, it automatically gets an IP address from Calico. There's few more settings that you can do. You can set certain pools as manual only, and you can reserve those IP addresses for manual assignment. And with annotations, you can also tell Calico from which pool the service should get an IP from, or you can also specify exactly the IP that you want to set for your load balancer service, and it's all for IPv4 and 6.
Oh, it works for both. That's good to know. I think I only use the IPv4 one. I've got another question. You mentioned IP pool. Does it mean there is a new sort of like IP pool, or is it like the same old IP pool?
It's the same old IP pool. The only difference is that in the allowed uses, there's a new option called load balancer. So you just create regular old IP pool, but select the new option load balancer for the allowed uses. And IP pool used for service load balancers can only be used for service load balancers. It cannot be used as a workload or as a tunnel IP pool at the same time.
Oh, okay. So we, I think it was like 328 or 329, we added use cases to IP pools. It used to have workload and tunnel. Workload, we could say all these pods are workloads. We could say tunnel, that would be like VXLAN, those sort of like tunneling, WireGuard, those going to get IPs from that IP pool. And now we have this load balancer. Oh, nice. All right. So with that, there are two other changes, and those are around BGP. One is the peer-to-peer local AS number. Olex have done some great work around it. I don't know if he is okay talking a little bit about it, but while I'm gonna talk about like nested KubeVirt peering, we're gonna let Olex think about what he's gonna do next. Not in terms of life, but just like pure local AS number. So nested KubeVirt peering. Until now, we like Calico provides a lot of BGP peering. You can peer it with all external stuff, but we sort of got a lot of requests about we want to have inward BGP, which is kind of interesting because when you think about BGP, you go like, all right, do you want to do like iBGP with other nodes? And apparently, there are a lot of people who use Calico to run KubeVirt. And within those virtual machines in KubeVirt, they are again running another cluster. So they wanted to peer that cluster within the KubeVirt VMs with their actual cluster, which is outside. So that is why we sort of created the nested KubeVirt peering. It's sort of cool. There is a lot of documentation around it. And I believe, was it Petro? Was it you who did the change for this? I sort of remember your PRs. You either broke it or fix it. One of these two things.
I think it was Song, maybe.
Song?
I think
Okay.
it was me.
All
yeah.
right. Next time I'll get Song to come here and talk about it. All right. So Olex, would you be okay to talk about the local peering?
Yeah. Can you hear me, by the way?
All right. So
Can you hear me?
we can hear you, yes.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So from what I understood is before we used to have just an ASN number, right? And now we have a local ASN number.
Correct.
Could you please like explain how would that work? Like why would we need it? What is the use case?
Yeah, before this change, it was possible to have only one AS number per cluster. And after this change, it's possible to configure a local AS number, which will override this AS number, and it's possible to have separate AS number per each Calico node. So
I see.
So I think we always had the ability to have a AS number per Calico node. I think this is within a single Calico node, you can now do a local AS number per BGP peer.
oh yeah, that's correct. For each BGP
Yeah.
peer, we can have separate one.
Yeah. So just to reiterate, we used to have something called a BGP configuration. It would dictate the AS number for your Calico BGP. Now, with your BGP peer configuration files, there is a value that you can set, which allows you to override that what's it called? That primary BGP number and advertise it to that specific peer. All right. And we did some OpenStack stuff. I don't think Nell is here. And I honestly am too scared to talk about OpenStack. It usually bumps into some unforeseen changes. Anyway, that being said, these are some of the stuff that we have done for Calico. There's a lot more. Just check our release notes. And we have like 15 minutes. I don't want to hug all the time, but I just want to talk about VPP. Calico VPP is, again, sort of like, it's a community contribution, to be honest, because it's not Tigera, it's not us. there's FDIO people, Nathan and others who work on it, and they've been doing a lot of great work. One of the things that they have done, I sort of wanted to highlight, is now they have parity with Calico version. So at the moment, their release is 331 and Calico is 331. And I have it on good authority that they're gonna come and help us do this parity with our Calico Enterprise and Tigera operator. So everything is gonna be on the same version. If this doesn't make sense to you, then it was an internal joke and our engineer is hopefully gonna work on versioning. Now that being said, one of the things that I've seen in their release notes was VCL sidecards. So the whole Victor packet processing happens on layer 7. It's sort of like, it's not like eBPF, so everything happens in user space. And they've added a dedicated VCL sidecar. So in your node, from what I understood when I read, in your nodes, they have now dedicated images to each VCL that allows you to have better performance. Given that I don't know this in details, I'm going to stop talking. And as you can see, I highlighted to ask Nathan about it, but we're going to get him for the next community meeting to talk about this VCL sidecar thing, because it was very interesting to me. That being said, they also their year was also around observability. They added a lot of like Prometheus things. The Calico VPP cattle is now doing PCAP, those sort of VPP traces and PCAP traces. If you don't know what PCAP is, it's just a file that gives you like all the communication. You can put it in Wireshark and it tells you about everything that you don't need to know or you need to know and talk about it in parties. Depends on your thing. And that would be it, because I don't know most of these, but there was something that caught my mind. It was going to be my joke for Nathan, which is I saw a blast from the past, because they sort of doing like profiles. I don't know why, but we're going to have profiles again. So if you don't know, Calico used to have something called profiles. It's not being used anymore. It's still there, but it's not being used. It was sort of like associating interfaces. But anyway, that being said, this is our December, and these are all the things that we have done. There's one more thing, which I need Casey for it, because we do have an internal file where our amazing engineers helped me to talk about stuff for this meeting, and he added.
I added that PR. I don't need to talk about that now. We can save that for next year. That's really an upcoming thing.
All right.
But
A
yeah,
teaser, maybe.
Thanks for doing the rundown of the last year. It's cool to see it all laid out in one place.
We do a lot. I sort of saw like a lot of like releases. Maybe we should slow down a bit. I don't know.
Nah, I want to do more next year. I think we can.
Yeah. Yes, we can. All right. That being said, this is our end of the year community meeting. Thank you for joining. Thank you for tuning. And we'll see you next year. Have a good
Thanks, Reza.
one. Bye.
See you, everybody.